Well, Mr. President, thank you very much. I am delighted to be here, and I got here last night, as some of you know, and I sat around the tables with you this morning and listened to you and watched you as you asked questions and probed, and I've listened to you this morning, and we've all gotten excited about this school, haven't we? You know, one way to judge it, and I was watching you, by the way, most of the time. The minute he stopped and took questions, 3 hands shot up. You were interested. You were excited about what you saw. And I don't know, you know, this may be hard to replicate it for a lot of schools, but boy, it looks good to me. And the idea of student-led parent-teacher conferences, imagine that. The students being in there, hearing what that teacher's saying, the parents seeing how their students are reacting, and the relationship with that teacher. All of those are great things, I think. And again, I don't know all that's involved in getting it done, but I'm impressed. And I'm impressed that you all have it here and that you're here. The first thing I want to say this morning to you all, every one of you, would all you legislators raise your hands? I want to make sure I'm looking at all the right people in addition to everybody else. I want to say to you, good for you. You're here. You're serving your state. You're learning. And you're going to be prepared to lead better. That's important. Not everybody who goes into public service does it, as you and I know. It's work. It's dadgum hard work. And you're doing it, and I can tell that you care. So the very first thing I want to say to you is I'm impressed. You know, I've spent a lot of time working on education and public leadership in my life. And here I am, close to 80 years old, and I'm up here with you on Friday morning. Why am I here? Because I'm impressed. Well, first of all, because I like West Virginia. Always have. Who was that great U.S. Senator you had? Robert Byrd. Robert Byrd. I love the fact that he brought the goods home for his home state. I believe in that. But I am impressed with you, and I appreciate you. Now, it's not just because the University of West Virginia beat Kansas in basketball this week, although we in the ACC, down around Duke and Carolina and State, where I went to school, we watch those kind of things, and I'm impressed. But I am delighted to be here with you, and I'm thrilled that the Hunt Institute is working with you. You know, this didn't just happen. We have a legislative retreat every year that the Hunt Institute puts on. A former great Republican governor and I got it started, and we named it for him. And your folks have come down and been a part of that and learned from it and figured out that you wanted to try to do it. And so here you are. Every one of you who've come here have learned some things. You're going to go back home a different person. You may not do all the things they're talking about here. I'm not sure I understand all the things that the higher education people are talking about, but I appreciate them, and I get ideas from them, and you're doing the same thing. And I want to also say to you that I'm impressed by the obvious fact of how much you love West Virginia. President Gee was here. I didn't get a chance to talk to him very long, but I know his history. He's been the president of the great universities of America. I don't know how much y'all pay him, but he used to be about the highest paid university president in the country. Y'all still paying him like that? I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing, he's not here free. But he is here great. Everything I heard him say here, I agreed with. And he's challenging you all. That's what leaders ought to do, by the way. Every one of you in the legislature, I hope you will continually be a learner, learning things, then going out and teaching people. I remember when I first got started as lieutenant governor. Y'all think I've just been governor, but I was lieutenant governor one time and president of the Senate. And I wasn't a member of the legislature per se, but I worked with the state Senate. And I greatly appreciated and admire and respect legislators. And I still work with them in my state. But I know how much you're working, and I know how important you are, and I know that West Virginia's in good hands. Now, over the years, I've had a chance to work with a lot of your folks. I was first elected governor the year that your great J. Rockefeller was elected. I know none of you have been in public service that long, but did any of you know J. Rockefeller? Only a few. I was the first two-term governor in my state, and I served the 2 terms that he served. And then I had a chance to get to know Bob Wise, your governor, who's now the #1 leader on digital learning in America. And Joe and Gail Manchin, good friends. She asked me to come up and speak to a big early childhood conference that you had here one time. And, of course, Governor Tomlin, who I didn't know well, but we shared a session together on education. And Dr. Gordon Gee, again, just such a great leader, and Brad Smith from Intuit. Look at the folks you've had here, but it's really about you. Now, folks, been some talk here today about people's background. I want you to know I grew up on a farm in eastern North Carolina, the poor area of the state. I grew up on a dairy farm. I'll bet you, no, I'm not going to say that. Have any of you milked cows by hand? Yeah, a few of you have. You know, one time when I was governor, we had a great big commissioner of agriculture, about that tall, about 300 pounds. And at the state fair, they wanted the commissioner of agriculture and me to have a milking contest. See who could milk a cow the fastest. Guess who won? Yeah. I learned that. I was state president of Future Farmers and trained to be a vocational agriculture teacher. I grew up in a poor area. Not many people went to college back in those days. We had to constantly work to have good schools. And my mama was a great English teacher. So I've got a lot in common with a whole lot of you all here. I'm looking at some farmers out here I've been talking to. But I do know something, and I have a feeling about the challenges that you're facing in West Virginia with your coal problems, or great industry through the years, and now it's challenged. I know that natural gas is coming along and has a lot of potential for you. But I know something about a state that is challenged economically and has to figure out what you're going to do about it. When I was growing up, North Carolina was one of the poorest states in America. They used to say that we in Mississippi were tied. Well, we aren't tied anymore, but we were then. Our industries were textiles, furniture, and tobacco. When I was a freshman at NC State, I remember very well, the textile industry started leaving us. By the way, it had come down from Massachusetts to start with, Mr. Berger. It stayed here a while. And then Mexico and Asia became cheap, and it left us. I remember reading the headlines in the paper that we were going to lose 100,000 jobs a particular year. And several years like that came along. And I said to myself, what are we going to do? Where are the jobs going to come from? How are we going to get them? And that was what North Carolina was facing. Well, we decided, and by the way, you can't ever answer that totally. You know, you have to have some faith. But you got to have a plan. You got to have a strategy. Our plan was to bet on education, to believe that if we educated our people well, and they were some of the brightest, most hardworking, productive, creative people, because a lot of what we've got to have, we got to create. We don't have it now, but we can have it in the future. We can create new things, that mean new jobs. And that's what we decided to bet on, both in terms of improving our public schools, which we cherish in our state, and of course investing in a big community college system and a great university system. And I'm impressed that, and I realize that you're facing many of the same kind of challenges that we did. So we decided to bet on education. We decided that we were going to not only build on our great public universities, and we established the first public university to open its doors in America, at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. But we focused on two big things in these years, and I'll just share it with you briefly. First of all, improving teaching and helping children learn. And I'm thrilled that you've got the great schools of education here and other things you do. We have a great commitment to public schools. In other words, they're our schools, and we're going to support them, and we're going to use them, and we're going to make them good, and they're going to help us become what we can be and what we ought to be. We started off saying we want to have the best teachers that we can have. And I want to say to all of you very candidly, if you don't pay them enough, you won't get them. They won't teach for you. They've got something else they can do. And I want to also say to you, and this is to your head and to your heart, if you want your children and your grandchildren to be good teachers, and we'd like to have them, you got to pay them. You know, they like to do it free or do it at a cut rate deal, but they got children. They want their children to go to college. So if we're going to compete to have good teachers, we got to have the resources. We got to invest in them. North Carolina at one point, about the time I was coming along, elected a governor who ran on the platform of improving teaching substantially in North Carolina, dramatically in North Carolina. His name was Terry Sanford. Probably none of you have ever heard of him, but everybody in North Carolina has heard of him. He ran promising that we were going to improve teaching in our state. And it took money. We didn't have the resources. You got a hard time now, right, on your budget. We were having a hard time. All those textile jobs and everything else leaving, furniture was going down, tobacco was going down. You know what Terry Sanford did? When he ran and got elected, he went to the legislature where he'd served in the Senate and tried to figure out where they could get resources so that we could pay teachers more and have good teachers. And there wasn't an obvious answer. You know the only thing the legislature would agree to do? Put a 1 penny tax on food. Now, when I say that to you, you sort of kind of draw back, don't you? A tax on food? You know, we had a 3-cent tax on other things, but we didn't have it on food. And Terry proposed putting it on food. Everybody said that's political suicide. And it was, by the way. But the legislature voted for it, and we did it. And immediately, the people who left our state, who were good teachers, one of my college roommate was one of them, a math teacher, who later was taught statistics at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Those great teachers that we had prepared our children, bright as they could be, started flooding back into the state. They wanted to live in North Carolina. They wanted to teach in North Carolina. They wanted to be a part of our state becoming what it could be and ought to be. And it took courage to get the money. I'm not suggesting where you get the money in West Virginia, but I'm saying to you, if you have to have the resources, maybe it takes courage to get them. And it takes political skill, by the way, to deal with it. You have to go out and you have to tell people why you're doing it. Later on, when I ran, for my third term as governor, fourth term, I told people we were going to raise teacher pay to the national average. We had slipped back, and we're down about 40th in the country. And fortunately, by the way, by that time, our economy was in pretty good shape. But people said, what's it going to take to do that? And the press asked me how much money you're going to have to put into the budget next year to do it, each year. I said, well, how much do you think? You know, the press always knows all the answers. I said, tell me, how much is it going to take? They said, well, we understand it's going to take $1 billion a year to raise teacher pay to the national average. I said, actually, it's going to take $1.25 billion a year, and I believe we can do it. And I ran for governor for my fourth term saying we were going to do that if I was elected. And I was elected, and we did it. Now, again, things were coming back by that time. But I'm saying we have to go to the people. We have to lay out for them. And by the way, they know a lot about what's going on. But they also know their children. They know their jobs. They know their communities. They love West Virginia. And so I I ran for office on that pledge, got elected, and we did it. Now, when it comes to teaching, it's not just a matter today of having enough good teachers, though that's the heart of it. We also maybe need to have help. At one of the breakfast tables this morning, people were talking about the need to have some help in the classroom. My wife, after being a wonderful school teacher and being a volunteer for about half of our career, she's back at it now, again, with the church ladies from our church. But we found out that we need some help in some of these classrooms. Some of you legislators have wives who are doing it, or husbands. I figured that out. I found out because as lieutenant governor, I was on the state board of education. I kept having teachers tell me, I've got all these children in the third grade and they can't read. And I was furious. I made an ad on it. I made an ad that I ran in my campaign for governor, my first campaign, in which I said, these teachers keep telling me that they have students in the third grade who can't read, and I think it's wrong, and we're going to do something about it. And again, I let the people decide if they wanted to do something about it. And they said yes. What we did was to put in a reading program and put in a teacher assistant in every classroom in grades 1, 2, and 3 to help out all these children who, many of them poor, from poor backgrounds. They don't have many books. They don't learn much language. They don't have a lot of support, and those teachers need help. It's something that our people voted for, supported. I'm sorry to say that all those teacher assistants I put in are not still in there. First of all, they started spreading them out to other grades. Some of that was needed. but we still need additional help in a lot of those lower classrooms so they'll learn to read. So we need some additional people like teacher assistants, and of course we need technology, and that's one of the things that Bob Wise does such a great job on. The other thing and the final thing I want to say to you today is this. I've studied this thing all of my life about how for us, our state, your state, the country, to get to where we want to be, to have education be successful, to have us have the jobs, not just recruit the industry to come in. Listen here, I got a thing right here. It says Governor Hunt's trade mission to Asia. I probably did 15 or 20 of them. But I really worked on finding the jobs, recruiting the companies to come in. I had a company come down to Charlotte one time that was going to move their headquarters there, and the first week they were there, they never told anybody who they were. They wanted to look the community over and see what the schools were like. But I worked with these heads of companies, and I knew what they were looking for and what they had to have if they were going to come. And boy, we got them. Now we, in addition to wanting companies to come, we want to start up our own companies. And that's beginning to happen a lot, especially in the Research Triangle, down around Charlotte, the great banking and financial communities. So the second time I ran, I was thinking about, all right, now how do we make the schools a lot better? And that's when, this was, 20, 25 years ago, I was reading constantly about what was happening early in a child's life. I remember Newsweek magazine coming out with a cover showing a picture of a child's brain. And they proceeded to tell about what happens in the earliest years of a child's life. That's where the little brain cells are connecting up. That's where the child is developing the capacity for intelligence. And they're the most important years in life. So I propose that we set up a program to help us have good early childhood education and help families, who are the most important educators, in the first years of the children's life. We established a program in North Carolina that we call Smart Start. It's not something run out of the state capitol. It is made up of nonprofit foundations or corporations, boards in every county, 501c3s. We have a state board, we call it the Partnership for Children or Smart Start. And the legislature appropriates money. It used to be up to about $250 million a year. Now it's a little less, but it'll start building back. And the whole idea was to help these programs for children be good. Help the child care centers where you've got children or grandchildren. Help them develop, help those children to be the best they can be. Have good health care. In short, help the children in the earliest, most formative and important years of their life become the brightest people they can be, the best people they can be, the folks who can attract business and industry into your state. It's working wonderfully. It's being copied around America. I recommend the idea of focusing on early childhood to all of you, and I know that you've been doing a lot. I think the challenge for all of us is to do more in the first 3 years, the most important years of life. Well, finally, I just want to say again to you how impressed I am by you being here, by you all having this session, 2 days, in which you're learning and thinking and sort of maybe figuring out some things that need to be done. We need to get every legislator to visit schools and stay there several hours and learn. Listen to the teachers. Ask them questions. Don't just go in and read a book and leave, but be leaders for the education and thus for the state. You all are doing it. I'm betting on West Virginia. I don't know exactly what's going to take the place of coal, but some things will. And I know some things, by the way, that are in the works. I've been talking to some of your scientists and technology people here before I came up here. I want to find out what the prospects are. And there's some very good ones. But the thing to do is to prepare the workforce that will attract the best companies and create the jobs. And by the way, they're your children. I commend you. I'm proud of you. I'm going to watch you. The Hunt Institute is prepared and anxious to work with you and help you, as we're doing with states around the country. But I wish you good luck and Godspeed. Thank you very much.